Here's Austin Ward.
Okay, Austin Ward joining us. Couple things. First, we got to find out what the hell Austin's doing now, because he keeps adding stuff to like his plate and like different titles and all these things. And somebody in the chat mentions about how jealous they are of the Roosters gear everyone wears, to which I want to say not everyone. Austin's got a lovely Roosters hat on. We see Bobby's rooster. Let's make sure I'm careful about that. And his gear he's got on as well. I don't see any Roosters gear on Tito or Bodie, and I'm not saying it's you guys are rubbing my face in it or Bodie's face.
Well,
but
the lovely Nicole has given a lot to Shark and Beam over the years. I will talk to Nicole.
No, it's okay. I'm not going to beg. I don't want to come across that way, Bobby. That's not my
pandering,
style.
begging.
I'm not going to do that.
Austin, that's what Jeff does best.
I'm not going to do that. Austin, how are you today, my friend? What are you doing now?
Wonderful. Yeah, I mean it's earned, not given.
You're right. That's fair.
Just put in your time, and I know Nicole. We'll take care of you, as Bob said, and looking forward to getting back to a fun, casual joint with those guys to talk soon. That'll be the next evolution of what as we retool here, revamp, rebuild, reload. That part on the writing side for me is now back at Lettermen Row, where Berm and I once helped build that from the ground up with our friend Will Crawl and Bob's friend Will Crawl, and initially went over there as part of the On3 movement. Didn't kind of work out the way we wanted to, but On3 and Rivals have since merged, and it just made sense for dotting the I's and Lettermen Row to come back together. So it's a homecoming opportunity for me. Pretty excited about that. Doesn't change anything with 97.1 and 10 TV with what we've got going with the Austin and Berm Show. All the podcasts are still going to be everywhere you found them since the beginning of May. We won't be changing channels. We won't be switching anything up there, because we're mostly, I'm excited about the writing part, but I'm still incredibly pumped up about what we've got going on with this family over there at the Fan.
So we hear Tony Petitti say that he's still prefers that 4 Big Ten automatic qualifiers. Bob and I talked about this earlier in the show. Want to get your take. Do you think that it will happen? Do you think it should happen?
I don't love the 4 automatic qualifying model for college football as a whole. I would be more in favor of it if Tony Petitti could find one thing that he truly believes in and stick with it. Because if you listen to his conversation with Joel Klatt, he was talking in circles and arguing with himself. And on one hand, advocating for automatic qualifying spots because he thinks that they're going to be opportunities to enhance the non-conference schedule, which I think we all know is not true, while then circling around to an argument that says, well, it does help if you have the selection committee not involved, and if you have more important conference games. The best way to get more important conference games is to have more of them. And I'm going to keep talking about this because it's not ever going to get to the point where I think it should be, which is nothing but Big Ten games, which I think is...
Oh, I like a big non-conference game, Austin.
I know, but guess what happens to those non-conference games if you're giving out AQ spots, Bob? And I know you know the answer. They don't mean anything.
They're fun to watch.
They become... But they would be true exhibitions, honestly. And we get these big non-conference games now in the playoff. That's what the expansion has given us, opportunities. Look at the list of opponents that Ohio State played. It wasn't just that they were great games, although they were, but they had 2 SEC teams. They played the Big Ten champion that they lost to in the regular season, and then they capped it off against Notre Dame in the College Football Playoff National Championship. You can't build a non-conference schedule that as good as the one that you would face in the playoff. So I realize that there are a ton of moving pieces and a lot of factors, but you can't on the one hand say you want AQ spots because it's going to give you better non-conference games, because why would it? The only teams that you'd be talking about specifically are like Ohio State and Michigan and maybe Oregon that would schedule up. Nobody else is going to. If the teams that are suddenly fighting for the 4th spot and then maybe trying to fall back on the at-large, if we're thinking about Penn State's scheduling approach, or if you're now talking about the next wave, look at Indiana's schedule. Last year, this year, they're not going to suddenly be like, you know what we need to do? We need to play Florida. Indiana is not going to do that. Okay, so you're asking Ohio State to maybe do that because the broadcast partners would want it. But the second that everyone realizes, wait a minute, there's no incentive for Ohio State to win this game. There's no incentive for Texas to win this game. Both of those conferences have automatic qualifying spots. This isn't going to affect seeding in all likelihood. Why would they play their best players in those games? Because they don't actually count towards the qualifying status. They don't count towards the Big Ten standings. They don't count towards the playoff. The fun of the non-conference games was that there were meaningful stakes being added to a lot of games in like week 1 or September. That won't be the case in this model.
I get that. I understand that. Do you think Tony Petitti, the reason he's doing this, and we were talking about this a little bit earlier, is simply the drive, Austin, to be able to garner more revenue with that 3-6, 4-5 Big Ten bonanza on College Football Championship Saturday?
I think that's been the driving factor for the Big Ten and their belief about how expansion should be handled. 100%. I think, when was the first time you first heard that floated, Bob, the championship weekend? For me, it was like 3 full years ago. I think this has been the goal for Tony Petitti and for the conference as a whole for a long time. And I don't actually have any issues.
Wait, is this a Kevin Warren? Is this a Kevin Warren creation? Are we? I mean, we can call it like the Warren piece on Saturday.
It's the Warren Commission.
Yeah, we'll call it the Warren. It'll be great. We can name something after him for all the great things he did for the conference.
Yeah,
Big noon. Thank Kevin Warren.
Discussed. Yeah, let's thank him for all of his great contributions to the Big Ten and his ability to read contracts in the fine print. The folks around the league have been talking about this before, and then it went into overdrive with Tony Petitti because he saw the financial value and impact that could have for the Big Ten. And I don't have a problem with it competitively. And if that's the model that the Big Ten wants to pursue, there can be a bunch of really cool things done with the championship Saturday or whatever, championship weekend to close out the Big Ten season. I think you have to put that hand in hand with the expansion of the conference schedule. You know, he keeps talking about how proud he is of them playing 9 conference games, and I think that's intended as a shot at the SEC, but 9 is also still not enough. It is unbalanced in virtually every way. This is an 18-team conference now. And if you are trying to award not just the championship spot, which is hard with the tiebreakers and not playing everybody, and just simple math, 5 road games and 4 home games, or vice versa, it doesn't make any sense. And it clears a path when you have a lighter year. Just look at what happened with Indiana a year ago. And I don't want this to be a segment where I'm just picking on the Hoosiers for the entire time, but
fraudulent.
This is not. When you look, they played really, a competitive game against the Irish. But I think Bodie knows that full well. Like, yes, they got a big lead early on, Notre Dame, but I want to at least make that point that they played competitively in that game. Indiana did, but did they deserve to fully be there? Did they play the most challenging Big Ten schedule on the path to get to that point? No, they did not. And that's a product of these unbalanced schedules. So I think I would love it if Tony Petitti and the Big Ten would address some things that impact the league directly before weighing in on some of these other matters for the SEC or the AQ status of the college football playoff expansion. I realize that all these conversations are happening at one time, and so I may not get my wish there, but I just that seems to be such a simple solution. And if you only go to 10, Bob, and you open up this door to still play these non-conference games, so be it. I can accept that, but I don't understand the reticence to even out the league, because guess what it also gives you if you add a 10th Big Ten game? More conference inventory for your broadcast partners, which is what everyone loves to talk about, turning games into products.
That's Austin. It's funny. I never heard the phrase inventory associated with college football until these recent TV deals, as far as that goes. And that tells where we're at on this. He's, by the way, one half of The Beat with Austin and Berm, now available on 10 TV Plus app. This is where Bobby, you can make your joke, Bobby. Which half? Okay.
I didn't say anything.
I know you didn't this time, but you have before. Austin, I guess Austin, how many position battles do you think are still up in the air for this Ohio State team? And what ones are you most looking forward to outside of the quarterback one, if that's even still a position battle?
Yeah, no, I definitely would still say that the quarterback competition is a battle, although Jeremiah Smith threw some gasoline on that fire for Julian Sayin with his comments to The Athletic. And I thought those were interesting, although I would add a caveat that we don't know what the actual question or how that conversation went to get to that quote, but that's too much inside baseball. I do think that that's ongoing. I've mentioned Tito before. We don't see the full picture in spring practice. We saw, parts of 3 practices and the entirety of 2 others, and 4 out of those 5, the general consensus was that Lincoln Kienholz had better days out of that group. Now, again, that's not all 15. That's not every snap. Julian Sayin clearly had the best performance in the spring game. So if Ryan Day is saying that it is neck and neck and that they've traded, gone back and forth with punches in the lead, I believe him. I've learned my lesson to take him at his word that he's not been misleading about his quarterback situation. So I'm very excited for July 31st and for that to kick off, because I think that you can't take that uncertainty more than 2 weeks out if you're opening against Texas, and there is value to winning that game, of course, because of this model that we're in now. I think how the carries are going to be dispersed with C.J. Donaldson and James Peoples at the top is worth monitoring. I don't know that counts as a battle, because we've seen Ohio State will use both of its top running backs, and Carlos Loughlin was really effective with that last year, managing Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. Maybe you can say there's a little bit of a battle at right tackle if Philip Daniels can force Austin Sehraveld out of that spot. I think that's Austin Sehraveld's job. I think he will be there against Texas. Not really anything going on at tight end. Wide receiver, pretty clear cut with the top group. Nothing at linebacker, nothing necessarily at corner. I think at nickel you might have some conversations, but for you look at this team, the starting lineup for me, Tito, I don't know that it's that difficult to write down what the first unit is going to look like on both sides of the football for Ohio State outside of quarterback. I think the only part that we get into where we could quibble are like position battles for depth and maybe being the top backup or cracking the rotation. And that's fun too. I mean, we could talk about that till the end of the 8 o'clock hour here, but I think it ultimately comes down to just Julian Sayin and Lincoln Kienholz and then charting the future from there for Ohio State.
Very interesting there. Do you think, Austin, because historically, at least last year, didn't really, they didn't play Julian Sayin and Lincoln Kienholz, really. I mean, Ryan elected to get a lot of reps with Will Howard to develop that continuity. Yep. Do you foresee some more of the younger guys playing in some of these early games? Now, maybe Texas notwithstanding, but getting more guys rotating in earlier as opposed to what was done last year?
Probably not in the opener, but you have an opportunity after that with just, really all due respect to the MAC champions. Those are tune-up games for Ohio State coming after week 1, and you have to maximize that. And it's twofold. It's building your depth for the course of the year, and it's also building for the future. Both of those things are preparation. But there are, even when you're talking about the starters, I think that's the interesting part. Bob, you and I were talking about that on the beat for Wednesday morning, which is like even a guy like Arvell Reese. We think he's going to be a monster and a superstar. He needs more game reps still. He got some a year ago, but he's never had to do it on a full-time basis. Caden McDonald, Edric Houston, they fall in that same boat. They need reps, but you also don't want to wear them out in games where the outcome is really not going to be in jeopardy for Ohio State. So I think that's a balancing act, but I do looking back last year outside of the quarterback spot where Julian Sayin did get in the game more than I thought he would. He also got to throw the football. That used to be a conversation 5 years ago. Why didn't C.J. Stroud get to throw the football when he came in these games? Like, okay, well, there's
load
a change.
Management,
Julian Sayin
Austin.
got those. That's right. You take care of that arm. Julian Sayin got the chance to throw. We saw that in a number of games, and sometimes surprisingly so, with that touchdown to Bennett Christian late in the game off that play action. But anyway, I do think that they will, because they're planning to play 16 games or maybe 17 games. And I thought last year the approach that they took was really smart, but given the churn of college football, you have to do that every single year. That's the delicate part when you're talking about this number of reps and an NFL style schedule. So I think we'll see that, and it's necessity for the Buckeyes.
He's handsome. He's fit. He's also half of The Beat with Austin and Berm, now available on 10 TV Plus and on the 10 TV Plus app. And we love having him on. We'll do it again next week. Thanks so much for your time, brother. We'll talk.
All right. See you guys.
That was Austin Ward there.